Now, officiating, the games we both just talked about had some real officiating. I don't even know if I want to call them gaffes yet. I think we should talk about that. But 2 touchdowns called back for South Carolina in that game. One was massive, the pick six where you had Kennard, one of the defensive ends for South Carolina, who's been really good, by the way. That's a good ball player. But he nailed Garrett Nussmeier right after the pick, and they called it a blind side and an unnecessary roughness, which I personally despise that rule. If he becomes a defensive player, he should be able to get hit. Okay,
that's football 101.
Quarterbacks are allowed to get hit, and also that's what defensive coaches teach. As soon as they throw a pick, go get the quarterback. This is your free shot.
Yes, that's rule number 1. Football 101. Find the quarterback after an interception and hit him. That's football 101. It's been a part of the game forever.
And then the Georgia game, there was a crazy. I mean, the unnecessary, or not the unnecessary roughness, but the roughing the passer that was called on Georgia on Brock Vandegrift. Just I can't fathom that flag being thrown in that situation. You extend a drive when they're backed up, and you completely kill the field position game for Georgia, and that's what they like to play in games like that. And then, I mean, even looking around the rest of college football, the sack by the Indiana defensive end on UCLA, where he sacked him, straight up sacked him, didn't land on him, didn't do anything. Here comes the flag for the roughing the passer. It's hard for me because I'm not blaming the officiating crews. Like it to a certain extent, I am, and also I forgot about the Florida targeting. That was the most egregious.
No, I was about to say that the Florida targeting. There was a game, Jacksonville State game, where a kid got kicked out. Colorado State game. These targetings that are happening when people are lowering their head a little bit, but they're hitting them in the hip, right? It's not head.
But it's incidental. It's football.
Exactly, bro.
It's incidental. I can't do anything about it. If he lowers his head, lowers his shoulder, I can't do anything about hitting him in the head sometimes.
No, and even
if we're going to do it by the way of the law. Us playing right guard, Kyron, sorry to cut you off. Us playing right guard, I lower my head on every play and make forcible contact to the head or neck area. If we really want to do this, we can do it on every play. Stop the nonsense. It's ridiculous. Sometimes you just have to let people play football.
Yes, man. And I get, and 100% right. I get the whole player safety thing, even if they're not making forcible contact to the head or neck area. If they're lowering their head, you're trying to protect the player, right? But that's football, man. We wear helmets and pads for a reason. Intent should be the number 1 factor in these situations, in my opinion. Sometimes you can't ignore, right? I mean, if an offensive player is lowering his helmet or he's jumping up and he's making contact and it just happens like that, okay, sometimes it's just bad luck. But on these plays where they're not even making forcible contact at the head or neck area to the defender, if it's in the hip or if it's in the chest, lower body, come on, we have to stop these targetings. And I think if we're going to call these 15-yard penalty, okay, I can live with that. I can accept it. A player being ejected and losing a half of football, and in some cases losing a full game because they get ejected in the third quarter of the game, and they're going to miss the first half of the next game. Justin Jefferson got ejected from the South Florida game for Alabama. He couldn't play to the second half of the Wisconsin game. Some kids are losing a full game of action because of these decisions, and I think we need to rectify that. If you're going to keep the 15-yard penalty again and emphasize player safety, at least make it to where these guys aren't losing actual game time. I think that's the biggest change we need to make.
I'm not mad at officiating crews.
Yeah.
I'll explain why. It's not necessarily them that has created all of this. It's the rule book. We don't have an official problem. We have a rule book problem. We have way too many judgment calls that are part of the rule book. Targeting, unnecessary roughness, roughing the passer, blindside block. These guys are going out there and everything in their eyes, it's in the eye of the beholder. And that could be different, officiating crew to officiating crew. Some that they see something as egregious may not see that thing at all. Others, other way around, vice versa. It's just, I think as much as people want to go after officiating crews, I think the biggest problem we have is the amount of judgment calls we have thrown in this damn rule book. Right. It puts them out there, those officials, in a terrible situation where they just have to decide using their eyes what they see. And it doesn't always work out.
Before we move on, and since we're on the officiating topic, shout out to my guy Deuce on Twitter. I'll holler at him and let him know I shouted him out here. But what do you feel about there being too many penalties that give offenses an automatic first down?
Yes.
You mentioned that, and I was like, I 100% believe that. If there's an illegal touch or something, a 5-yard penalty, you shouldn't get an automatic first down for that. Sometimes
illegal touching, holding.
Yes.
everything. Hell, pass interference sometimes. It's like if it's before the sticks, I don't think that should be a first down automatically.
Right, especially some of these plays are 3rd and 15, and you get an illegal contact, and on the other side of the field, it has no consequence in the play, right? But it's an automatic first down for the offense. He said that, and I thought about it. I was like, I 100% agree with that. There's too many penalties that give us and I'm an offensive guy.
Well, Kyle, you know why it is. You know why that's the case. Because it's going to drive more ratings and more offense to a TV screen. Like that's why they have the sort of penalties and the punitive action on those penalties that they have. They want to favor offense. We're doing it at every level of football.
100%, man.